So here is the introduction to our emotional intelligence materials, the content. Our workshops are 90% practice. Through these recordings, you'll get all the theory behind what we do when we meet. So it's any workshop, any retreat we do, we have this running in the background. So we divided the content in different videos to facilitate both the navigation and the digestion. Buckle up. And we hope you enjoy. So what are we talking about? What are we talking about when we mention the word emotion? So throughout this program, we are referring to emotion as a mix of physical sensations and thoughts. To simplify, we will use the words in feelings, emotions, states, moods, as if they meant the same thing, whether they are conscious or unconscious, short or long-lasting. The term emotional intelligence is not new. If it feels new to you, it means you arrive late to the party. And if you're like me, realizing that you're late will give you a boost of energy to catch up. So it's been around since the 90s. It's as old as Coolio's Gangsta Paradise. And in 1990, the exact year, Salovey, Mayer, and Caruso started publishing key pieces of their emotional intelligence model. But it's Goleman, with his 1995 book, who really made it stick. So much so that in 1995, Time magazine dedicated a cover to the phenomenon, asking, what is your EQ? Bar On, in 1997, offered another model, also used today. Emotional intelligence builds on top of the research on flow, on positive psychology, on human motivation, developed since the 1970s. You have some of the books on the bottom left corner. Emotional intelligence actually repackages a lot of ancient wisdom discovered and taught as part of many spiritual or religious journeys. So Goleman's model won because it's simple. When you develop your own emotional intelligence, it requires you to focus on your feelings and your body. So if the theory is too complex, if the model is overwhelming cognitively, it will consume too much of your attention and it will get in the way of the practice. The most important is the practice. So that's the reason why we use little theory in our workshops, and we always choose the simpler model. In Goleman's model, there is recognition and there is regulation. Recognition is about better feeling, and regulation is about feeling better. There's also an inner component, the self, and there is a social component. It's very simple, so it's a matrix, 2 by 2, and it's elegant, and it works. Most importantly, it works to map the territory. So why are we talking about emotional intelligence? First, let me thank you for being curious. And now, for you to get the most out of this emotional intelligence material now and workshop soon, you want to go beyond curiosity and connect to what matters most to you. This is something true for any workshop. Now, because we use acting and because we practice together states and situations, you will want to be all in to truly get the benefits. If you were not all in, you'd be wasting precious practice time, and it's not like we get a lot of it. I have never attended or facilitated any workshop or retreat where we're like, oh, we have extra time. Never happens. So if theory takes too much time, or if you are skeptical too long during the times, you basically lose the benefit of attending the workshop or the retreat. So to understand why I care, why you might care, there's a simple question. On a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being low energy, low charisma, negative, tense, you could almost say unsuccessful and unsatisfied, and 10 being high energy, charismatic, optimistic, successful, fulfilled, and relaxed, what do you want the members of your team to be? What do you want your leader to be? What do you want your partner to be? How do you want to be yourself? And it's very rare, I never got the answer, to get people wanting their wife, their husband, their partner, their leader, their CEO to be 4 out of 10, or that they're happy if the colleagues in their team are 5 out of 10. No. Who wants mediocrity? Whether your understanding of high performance is creativity, innovation, leadership, charisma, trust, energy, wisdom, most of what separates top performers from the average is emotional intelligence and mindsets contained within that emotional intelligence and beyond. It's easy to see patterns when you look at other people. And when I was referring to the 1 and the 10, you probably can visualize people in your environment, in your circles. It's easy to see it when you look at other people. It's a bit harder sometimes for people to see it in our own life. We just need to look inward, take the time to observe. This body of work on emotional intelligence that we are presenting to you will be about feeling better. So regulation, the hacking of states part. And it will be about better feeling, the witnessing, the understanding, and the expressing of our states. So what are your goals? And what do you want? What do you want to achieve? What, how, who do you want to be? And how does it feel to achieve this? You can pause the video, you can take some time, as much time as you need to get a proper answer. Because without this answer, without setting the intention, everything that follows is useless. So how does it feel to achieve what you want to achieve? And how can emotional intelligence help you as a creator, as a partner, as a parent, whatever objective you have, as a friend? To take the time you need, and emotional intelligence, whatever goals you have, it delivers on 4 meta goals, let's say. They are usually part of everything we try to achieve. It helps you as you become better and better at those skills. It helps you self-regulate better, make better decisions, influence others, and it also helps you access peak performance through what is called flow. In the experience economy that we've been in, and in the transformation economy we are entering, and I recommend you to check Pine and Gilmore, who have theorized this. There's an article in the Harvard Business Review called The New You Business from 2022. In that experience economy, in that transformation economy, emotions are top priority. Whether you talk about user experience, user transformation, or employee experience and transformation, how can you make rational decisions if you don't take into account emotions? And how can you take them into account if you don't experience them yourself? It's not a theoretical concept. It's like, how does it feel to do X, Y, and Z? According to research by Goldman, emotional intelligence has more impact on performance than IQ and technical skills combined. So Goldman definitely had a vested interest in the research, but he was thorough. He asked over 100 companies to identify the competencies that it took to be successful in over 180 jobs. He found that 2/3 of the competencies identified within that process, 2/3 of those competencies dealt with emotional intelligence rather than technical skills. And leading firms like Korn Ferry did similar research with hundreds of executives and arrived to the same conclusion. EI, emotional intelligence, can be your competitive advantage. In professional and technical fields, the threshold for entry is typically a high IQ. Since everyone that you work with is in the top 10% or so of intelligence, IQ itself offers relatively little competitive advantage. EQ does, and obviously as people improve in EQ, you'll need to find something else. But for now, it can be your competitive advantage. So we saw that change is a deeply emotional journey, and it affects morale, it affects self-esteem, expectations, confidence, team building, and performance. Emotional intelligence gives you the tools to anticipate and thrive on that change journey, both as a member, as a follower, and as a leader within your ecosystem. And when I say leader, it doesn't have to be the position of authority. You can be an individual contributor, but influence the ecosystem in a major way. So you will find loads of emotional intelligence influencers programs. And as one researcher, Antonakis, who's participated to the research paper that is here, observed, he says, practice and voodoo science is running way ahead of rigorous research. And it's true of every field, but it's particularly true in emotional intelligence. The body of practices that we assembled is of value to leaders, to people involved in highly social roles like sales, like support, like counseling, but not only. Although some 2010 research showed that higher emotional intelligence did not correlate with higher performance in jobs with fewer emotional demands, like mechanics, scientists, and accountants, we'd argue that the researchers focused on a subset of emotional intelligence skills. If the management of flow was included in their concept of emotional intelligence, their conclusions would be different. In any case, it's only through direct experience that one can identify what works for oneself. You can read scholar opinions on the topic, like this research paper, or you can try and see what works for you. Our workshops give you the opportunity to try what we tested to be productive. No amount of reading and thinking will give you the results you're looking for. The less you'll have tried for yourself, the bigger the leap of faith. But this is our invitation. So if you have ever tried any of the practices, you'll inherit beliefs from the current culture you bathed in until now. If you have tried, your early successes or your early failures will have formed your current beliefs. Whatever the case, let's talk about beliefs, as they're the foundations which will condition your exploration and your practice. So how do you relate to emotions? To you, are they a problem? Are they something you enjoy exploring? What do you believe about emotions? Again, if you want to pause the video and take a moment to think, to feel what you've been believing, that's the moment. So there are a multitude of beliefs about emotions. We have belief about emotions in general, about specific emotions, whether they're intense or not, whether they're positive or negative, or about specific emotions like shame, anger, joy, etc. We have beliefs about emotional interventions like meditations, workshops to develop empathy, programs to be more charismatic. And we all different beliefs, whether we are talking about emotions at work, with close family members, friends, and strangers. So our beliefs will determine how we handle emotions. If I believe that emotions are shameful and undesirable, I'm going to keep a lot in. I will also perceive emotional people or emotional situations as unacceptable. Maybe I end up creating a space where everyone tries hard not to show emotions. I might even hire or fire based on that belief. If I believe that emotions are contagious, I'll be monitoring the emotional state of my team. I will also be careful how I self-regulate, and I will try to avoid transmitting unproductive emotions. And if I believe, for instance, that emotions have an impact on thought, I will manage my work to leverage these emotions. If I don't believe that emotions have an impact on thought, I'll manage my work without considering emotions at all. So you get the point. Loads of different beliefs. Each of these beliefs will condition a set of action, set of behaviors. And the way we talk about emotions also matters. It's kind of a part of the belief system. Whether you consider you have an inner chimp or you have an inner child will give rise to different perspectives and practices. And beliefs about emotions are cultural. Each person, because they belong to multiple subculture, will come with its very own beliefs about emotions. And the way you communicate with them will need to be tailored if you want to be effective in your communication. So you need to understand how people process emotions and how they believe they are processing their emotions. So this on the slide is about how people believe about emotional residue, whether emotions stay for a long time in American culture and Indian culture. There are beliefs about each specific emotions, as we said. So beliefs like negative emotions are harmful, intense emotions have not their place at work, or anger should be kept under control. Attitudes towards emotions are likely constructed of affective, how much do I like or dislike emotion X, behavioral, whether and how I will act in response to emotion X, and cognitive evidence, like how good or bad do I think emotion X is. Every emotion can be seen as adaptive. Some of them are seen always as maladaptive by some people, but every one of the emotions you feel have an adaptive function, let's say. So, for instance, shame serves people by restraining them from engaging in shame-inducing behaviors. So it avoids some things to happen in the public space that we probably would not want to see happening. No emotion is negative without a context. For example, if you want to go to bed because you have to wake up early in the morning because you have a big day, you don't want to have your peak energy. So even if you have the most joyful, high energy moments, you know that in 6 or 7 hours, you need to wake up and do something. This energy will be something you would not want. Less obvious, what kind of emotional mix do you want in order to do analytical work? So being tense, being maybe having some unpleasant feelings is actually positive for convergent thinking. So when you want to edit a book, for instance, or when you want to do your taxes or accounting. On the other hand, when you want to do creative work, you want divergent thinking. So you want to be able to explore ideas that are a bit crazy. And that's better done when you're relaxed and pleasant. So depending on what you want to do, tense and or nervous, rigid, and unpleasant feelings can be actually positive. And we're always surprised by that. So it's something that we use in retreats to make sure that the day is not, oh, I can't work now because I'm not feeling so good. Well, how do you feel really? And what could be the activity that would benefit from this? Beliefs about emotions have a strong impact. And it's because of the placebo or nocebo effect. For example, if you believe that stress is enhancing, it will help you perform. If you believe that anxiety can be reduced, it will. So beliefs are self-fulfilling prophecies. And it's particularly true for emotional beliefs about emotions. On emotional intervention, so what we're doing right now, people also have beliefs. So stuff like it's better to observe emotions and not try to change them. That's one belief. Emotional workshops, emotional intelligence workshops are a waste of time. That's another one. These things are for hippies. I heard about these religious practices like meditation, another one. So it's important to realize what your beliefs are currently about emotional interventions and see whether they're going to be conducive for the work we are engaging or starting to engage with. What do you believe? If you can pause the video again and see, is your perspective more analytical? So that's the guy on the left, to make it simple. Or are you more embodied? And maybe are you balanced? So what do you perceive your beliefs to be? You want to go deep on the topic? There is an amazing paper from Kisley, Shulkin, and others, 2024 paper, so really new, that explores loads of those beliefs about emotions. The most important for the workshop is that you get in your growth mindset. So what we're going to do when we get face to face and we start working, it's going to be about growing the emotional muscle, build and strengthen new connections in the brain. People tend to think that the way they feel and react is fixed. But just like any other area of life, it's about practice. Obviously, there's high inertia to mitigate, but there is no limit to how much we can change our emotional world and our reactions. So let's get into our growth mindsets. You can check muscle building, you can check neuroplasticity, epigenetics, and the 10,000 hours concept. If you doubt that you can change your emotional wiring, all of those, like those four concepts, help connect to growth mindset. During the workshop, you'll experience the change yourself, but only if you're open to it. So what we believe, apart from these growth mindsets, what we know to be true, more accurate statement, you can't leverage emotions if you don't accept and integrate them. That's the first one. Second one, emotions have an impact on thought, on memory, on behavior, on performance, and on leadership. You have a level of control on emotions. It's built through foundational work. So you can't build control on emotions when you're having an anger or a depression episode. This is something that you build. It's like a preventive thing. You build over time a muscle. Emotions are useful because they contain useful information. They help us manage our focus. They help us decide. They even help us transform. And finally, emotions are contagious. They are the core of influence. Now, skills that we develop. Let's look at the skills. So we did deep research on emotional intelligence, and I hope it will show throughout these materials. And we synthesized all the major emotional intelligence practices and models currently available. We combine them into 2 tracks that we play with in our workshops. The red track, the better feel track, is about perceiving, labeling, understanding, and expressing. Those 4 skills. So there's a stimulus. The stimulus triggers physical sensations and associated thoughts that you can either ignore or perceive. And if you perceive them, you can maintain awareness, you can numb it or hack it so that you don't feel anymore. Let's say that you are starting to feel anger. You can hack your way out of anger, which is not something we're going to treat in Better Feel, but this is something that people do. You can label it, you can understand it, and you can even express it. So that's the red track about better feeling. That's the recognition part of Goleman. And then there's the purple feel better track, which is about intention setting. It's about planning, which might include visualization. It's about empathy, and it's about acting. And in acting, you can also have visualization. It's part of it. And empathy and acting together give you access to charisma, which is some form of acting as well. So these are the key emotional skills organized in journeys, let's say. Now, through our research, we discovered 4 emotional processes. And the practices that we propose leverage these processes or compensate them. So the first process we will leverage is how emotions form. So even when we do not feel our environment through touch, the body is involved, the entire body. It's like the brain asks the body for an opinion. What is our gut feeling? We could look at the details of this process, and now we have 3 brains, not one, like the heart, the gut, and the brain, not one, but we won't. But let's keep things brief and identify the step where the body is part of the emotional decision-making process and therefore can be used as a hacking tool. So that body, whether it's the gut, the heart, the skin, whatever you want to understand or label, there are these moments where the brain consults the body and we leverage that. It's the way we hack for acting. The second process is the escalation spiral. To simplify, our thoughts and emotions, our brain and body, enter in resonance. And if you move your body in a tired, sad, tense way, thoughts of exhaustion, sadness, and tension will come naturally. If you focus on such thoughts, your body will model these types of postures and movements. So the beginning of this process does not have to be authentic. The body doesn't know whether you're moving it because of an emotions you're feeling, or if you're giving it an order to act in a special way. So you can enter laughter, you can enter deep anger, deep sadness through faking it, through movement. And if you let the spiral play out, you'll soon be able to make any emotion you want or don't want. So it's important to be very, very intentional about the way we move, the way we use our bodies. The third process has to do with our bias to seek pleasure and escape pain. It triggers the fight or flight response. It facilitates or reduces memory encoding and revisiting. This bias to seek pleasure is at the heart of everything we do when we are not using agency, when we are not using our higher self, let's say. So how much time do you spend taking and watching pictures or videos of fights, sad moments? We don't, especially personal ones, right? We always try to capture the highlights of our days. We not only manage our experience of the world in order to maximize pleasure and reduce pain, we also craft an identity for ourselves and for others to consume. And finally, altogether, acting in that same manner creates a culture of seeking pleasure and escaping pain. And Instagram is a great place to see that. We tend to sweep painful experiences under the rug, reject them as individuals and as society. The fourth process is the fact that emotions stick, kind of the is residue we were seeing earlier in one of the slides. So to continue the previous metaphor, it stays under the rug. It's not like it disappears. It sticks to us as subjects where we accumulate negative emotions that have not been integrated, creating a sort of emotional depth. And it sticks to our objects as well. So if we do not process or integrate the negative emotions we feel towards others, they will prevent us from truly connecting to that person, to these persons, in the next moment. So if you have deep anger for someone, even if the person shows up completely differently in the next moment, the next day, you'll still be treating them based on this emotional projection that is only in you. So that's the emotion stickiness. So while the first and second processes give us keys to feel better, the third and fourth processes invite us to better feel and integrate or live with the consequences of the depth that we accumulate. Early on, small depths won't do much damage, but as we progress through life, the collector comes knocking on our door, impacting our mental health and physical health, our relationships, and our capacity for high performance, for creativity. All the emotional intelligence skills we develop in our workshops contribute to the 4 goals we saw earlier. The key is that although we cut emotional intelligence in discrete pieces to make it easier to, as I said earlier, navigate and digest, the key is to understand that we need to practice those aspects in a way that is linked. So everything is linked and everything will work in concert. So we'll break it down to simplify the workshops, to simplify practice and understanding, but everything is working together. So the reality of the field is that you actually doing everything all at once, all the time. So some skills are foundational and absolutely necessary for others to emerge. For instance, with self-awareness, a person has a 50-50 chance of demonstrating self-management. Without self-awareness, a person has virtually no chance of demonstrating any self-management. So that's key, self-awareness first. And how authentic and effective can you be at effective social skills if you lack self-awareness? How can you feel others if you can't feel yourself? How much emotional depth also do you accumulate in your relationships if you enter the interpersonal world without the right inner ecology? So using Mayer-Salovey's emotional intelligence model and the levels, we can almost visualize emotional intelligence as the layering of skills. So level 1, you can perceive and express emotions. Level 2, you can assimilate those emotions in thought. Level 3, you enter strategic emotional intelligence, according to them, where you can understand and analyze emotions. So you get deeper. And finally, you can regulate your emotions. So they have conceptualized this layering, which we'll use as well. Here you can pause and have a look at the detailed key emotional skills that we work in the workshop. And now let's look at the key insights behind how we keep our emotional intelligence workshops safe for participants. Go slow is the thing that I would tell you, although I have a tendency not to go slow. I need to remind myself to go slow all the time, especially in those kind of workshops. And as the poet Auden wrote, truth, like love and sleep, resents approaches that are too intense. Truth, like love and sleep, resents approaches that are too intense. And I need to remind myself of that all the time. So, as Clark Bain theorized, great book that you can find online, it is important to regulate distance during emotional intelligence workshops. So he does something around, I think it's psychodrama or participatory performance. We use it for our workshops on emotional intelligence. You start with games and creative activities. Then you enter the fictional, the distant stories. Then you transition to the personal, still through stories, through fiction. Then you get out of the fiction through positive, real personal stories. And finally, you work on resolved and unresolved difficulties. So there's less and less fictional distance. It's less and less a game, and it's more and more a form of therapy. So how long before entering unresolved territory? So we designed our retreats and our workshops in order to offer to our participants a form of flow channel. That's the blue part in the middle. We want participants to be able to experiment and take steps outside but near their comfort zone. We can't avoid completely anxiety and discomfort, or comfort even, but we can stay in the zone, away from panic and boredom. So you, as a participant, observe where you are and where you can go at each moment in the workshop. Always try to keep one step in safety and one step in experimentation. We cannot, as facilitators, regulate as well as you'll regulate for yourself. So as facilitators, we always work to empower participants with an understanding of this channel, this flow channel, or this, it's a flow channel for workshops. And there are two dimensions that drive one's ability to experiment further. One is presence, so your inner ability to feel, to perceive, to understand yourself. In workshops, particularly the long workshops or the multi-day retreats, one can access a level of presence much higher than what one usually accesses in their day-to-day. And the more present you are, the more perspectives you can hold at once, the more beings you can feel, the larger your world becomes, and the more you can truly know whether you're in a step of comfort or you're in a step of exploration. The trust of the space, the trust of the facilitator, the trust of the fellow participants, the trust in yourself is the other dimension that you want to be checking all the time. And if trust is not built, it doesn't feel safe to explore. So we call the space we're in retreats or in workshops the sandbox. And we have 5 rules that we use to open and close our sandbox. First, we play. Try things you want to try. Second rule or principle is all in, all out, or at least more out, and at worst, something out. So the idea is the more you put in, the more you let in, the more you allow, the more you'll get out of the workshop. Third principle, feel. Feel before you judge. Feel before you watch others. And this is in case you do not try. So ideally, you flow and you try. If you can't, if you are blocked in some moments, just feel. Don't enter judgment, because you will exit the workshop when you do that. You will basically dissociate from what happens. I mean, of course, if it's too overwhelming for you, dissociate. But there are steps, right? So feel before you judge, before you watch. Fourth principle: one step in safety, one step in experimentation. We spoke about it. And then the fifth, final principle: get help if you feel you experimented too much. We have plenty of practices to come back to grounding, to come back to safety. The workshops are as deep as you let them be. And the depth is a function of the time you allocate and the level of presence you allow. Before the workshop, in this kind of moments, during the workshop, and after the workshop. If during the workshops you open a door you have trouble closing, please come to us, let us know, and let's take a moment, some moments, to go back to grounding and safety. When we touch lower emotions, we take effective steps to come back up. And this is the theory behind the coming back up. So you move from moments of threat, of survival, to moments of thriving. So the feeling is different, and you climb back up through the different emotions. So there are different models to say which one is the lowest one, which one is the highest one. But basically, you go from shame, guilt, apathy, grief, fear, to gratitude, to love, to joy, to peace, to I won't say it, to higher. So if at the end of a workshop you feel you stay down, let us know. We extend the workshop a little bit so that you don't stay there. It's easy to come back up. It just needs to happen. So let us know again. Our workshops are invitations. An invitation to be curious, and you are already. You clearly accepted that invitation if you watched until now. An invitation to explore the fact that we can actually change our own physiology and inner equilibrium by means other than drugs is not always known. And people have not explored breath, for instance. They have explored little meditation. So there is an immense field to explore. So that's an invitation to explore with us. An invitation to care, to take care of ourselves, and as we discover others more fully, see whether we want to take care of them too. And an invitation to be courageous. The courage to uncover what we have pushed down, disowned, set aside, put down under the rug. Not just grief, sadness, and anger, but for some people also love, also joy. The courage to tolerate the return of the oppressed in ourselves and others. So that's the end of the introduction to emotions. Thank you for bearing with me. I don't know how long it was. Hopefully it's useful. Please send me feedback, send me questions, send me anything that comes up to you. If you have time now, instead of going back to the daily grind, to the routine, to the projects, have a moment to check in yourself what rang true to you, what resonated, what kind of steps you feel like you'd like to take after this little conceptual introduction, and see you on the other videos for the rest. Thank you.